My name is Idris Sandu. I'm 20 years old, and I consider myself a design architect. I started programming when I was 13 years old. I got my first internship at Google. Later that year, after reading a whole bunch of stuff on Steve Jobs and being inspired by the first iPhone that ever came out. At 14, I was doing a lot of stuff in the political space. Received the Presidential Scholar Award and so many others. When I was 15, I was hired by Twitter, doing data analytics. 16, Instagram hired me. When I was 17, I did some stuff for Snapchat. All the way through 18, helped design the initial spectacles with the Snap team, Snap Labs. When I was 19, I worked at Uber as a consultant, helped with a lot of their autonomous software for their self-driving cars. And 20, which is the age I currently am now, the beginning of this year, or last year, I did a collaboration with Nipsey Hussle to bring the world the first smart store. It was a store that leveraged my technical know-how and just, future-esque technologies, if you will, and Nipsey's cultural relevance to, fuse those together to provide a unparalleled experience.
Nah, so basically I'm walking by and I see this shit on the screen. And I got my kid with me, so I almost don't say nothing to him. And I'm like, bro, what is this? I know technology enough to know what is that. And then, you a young dude that, you can. It just struck me as a little bit unique that he was sitting here doing this. So I'm like, bro, what is that?
After I got back from Africa, and my story's out there, so if you haven't heard this story, you can go look it up. But after I got back from Africa, that same year, Steve Jobs unveiled the first iPhone. And, being abandoned in Africa, that, kind of, just sparked a different interest in me. And I got to see what real world problems were. I got to understand that a lot of problems that we have here aren't real world problems; they're first world problems. And so, Steve unveils the first iPhone, and I was like, I know this is the future, and I want to focus on it. And so I just started going to the library for 2 years straight, learning on Java, C#, so many programming languages, I can't even name them all, Assembly, Basic, all of them. And I applied for my internship at Google when I was 13 and a half. And I got it. And that was the beginning of my tech career, which ultimately leads me to where I am now. What I've realized, and that's led me to, the design ethos that I apply now is, in the tech space, which happens to be one of the most influential, which happens to be one of the most influential, or the digital era, or the digital revolution, which happens to be one of the most influential and impactful things that's happened in human existence. As we are in the early stages, there's no one that's ever been cool. And a lot of people that think they're cool actually aren't cool. And so, looking at the way technology is just perceived. Formerly, it wasn't something that people wanted to even be in. It was you're too nerdy, or blah, blah. And what I was realizing was, there was so much knowledge, in this field. And a lot of people were held from the truth and were given false information, and were just led astray from how this could really impact their lives. And so me working at all these companies, I now come back You know, it's like going in isolation and coming back to the culture, which happens to be also one of the most impactful things that's ever existed. I want to fuse culture with technology. You know, I want to take things like fashion and apply technology to them in a way that they make sense, in a way that's not gimmicky. You know, using the skill sets from all these companies, I now want to come back and say, how can we, you know, collaborate effortlessly in a way that can move a whole culture or a whole movement, or can transcend or transpire a dialogue to form, you know, and like, you know, it's like, it's not easy to be like a futurist and just like know how things are going to end, or not necessarily end, but how you see the future going, you know. And I just see the future going in a direction where it's like we can now be at the forefront of a digital revolution as a culture, as a people, which we formerly couldn't do through the truth and through education. So, yeah. I refuse to be confined. And you know, what I'm doing now is, you know, to try and apply, I believe we can change the world through design, through good design. And so many people that I look up to also believe in that philosophy. Like one of my two people I really look up to that, you know, are like design Yodas. You know, you have Johnny Ive, who's the lead designer at Apple, and Dieter Rams, who inspired Johnny Ive. And these people just, you know, you even look at the 10 principles of design by Dieter Rams, and it's like the codes to life. I apply those same codes to everyday life, you know, and so now I'm in a position where, you know, the person that can impact is also an influencer. I can build my, as a lot of people say, clout. I can use my clout and my influence to over-index in both worlds, in the technology world as well as, you know, in culture. So hip-hop, fashion, and so many other, you know, subcategories. But, you know, I want to build brands, you know, that use technology as a blueprint. You know, I want to be the person that takes fashion very seriously and fuses that with technology in a way that makes sense. I want to, you know, as you've seen, I took music. I took a hip-hop artist and, you know, transcended just normal ways of doing things, like normal ways of showcasing music, normal ways of distribution, and we use design as our ethos, or technology as our ethos for design, and it worked very well. And I want to do more of that. You know, we saw the positive reception from the communities. We saw the positive reception from people that purchased merch, you know, but I want to take it to the next level. I just see, I'm a futurist. I just see an opportunity. You know, I see an opportunity to impact. I see an opportunity to impact and help a people, you know, whether, regardless of race, gender, color, you know, these are all things that we've created, but I see a way to help people and indirectly change a mindset. One of the most difficult things you can do is change somebody's mindset. You know, when you have kids that grew up in the hood, you know, with probably single parents, or grew up in scenarios where they didn't have access to resources, it's very hard to convince that person otherwise on why they shouldn't be doing something they're doing. But if you can communicate the product and the culture together, you can change the world. And that's what I'm on right now. So, you know, through my brand that I'm creating now, Cosign, that's a Tesla, so it's real quiet. Through brands like the one I'm building, Cosign, it's a representation of our proposal into the tech world. You know, to say, you know, people have been arbitraging off of our culture for so long, and this is now our proposal. We are now taking that very thing which, you know, a lot of people control and find ways to create innovative things like technology. So, you know, what I'm doing with brands that I'm creating, you know, like Cosign. Cosign is the brand I'm working on right now. And Cosign aims to take technology and fuse it with fashion, aims to reprogram people's mindset, aims to help people discover, you know, like the codes of life through unorthodox ways. Unorthodox ways of doing things. So, you know, Cosign, many might look at it initially like as a clothing brand, but it's deeper than that. Another design ethos I apply is the law of collaboration and the principle of collaboration. So I want to collaborate with people like Virgil Abloh, Kanye West, Axel, Johnny Ive, you know, so many creatives who I feel not only have the relevancy, but are in their own ways very much shifting a paradigm.